Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around summer holidays. My name's Sitch.
My name is James.
No more football.
Well, not quite.
Nah, Euros. People are on it already. It's only
Who's going to be in the squad 2 o'clock today? People will be whinging and moaning.
I have a very sneaky feeling that Jude Bellingham's going to make it. And I think Harry Kane might stand a good chance as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Possibly. I don't think there'll be too many surprises in the squad.
No.
But yes, Euros is fast around the corner, but another season done, James.
How did it end for you, darling?
And a huge sigh of relief that it's over. I haven't spent time unpicking the bones of the season from the point of view of looking at why it was rubbish.
Do you want to?
Well, that depends, James. Do you think there's anything to be learned from it?
Probably, yeah.
Well, then it's worth it, isn't it?
Okay.
So I think it comes down to what do we learn for next season. That's all we want to do every season is get better, right? And we've got to remember as well that it's a guessing game. Like, there's plenty of really good managers that have the odd blip in a bad season. I know Az struggled this year, for example. Adam.
As struggled by Az's standards.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose everybody's playing a competition against themselves. But you look at Adam, apart from when he managed to captain Guardiola and recovered a bit, but struggling. Trophy Mo, who I saw on Sunday, had a more difficult season. His more difficult was like 250, 300k, right? But it was a much more difficult season. I think looking back at it, I ended up 1.191 million, which is really bad when you're trying. But I suppose the end of the season ended up being one of those where I'm chasing and then you can end up sliding the other way because you're chasing. Stubbornness is the moral of the year.
Example?
Not getting players early enough.
Example?
That have high ownership. So I was late on Ollie Watkins.
Yeah.
I didn't own Bukayo Saka for long periods of the season when he was Mr. Consistent. Even though he never went crazily explosive, he was so consistent throughout.
Yep.
Towards the end, like not having Haaland for the 4-goal game and stuff.
Yeah, but
really
that's different. You were chasing, as you said.
Yeah, I get that. So really, I think early in the season, I didn't jump on Mbomo when he was doing really well. And I think a lot of people were on that. So, yeah, I do feel like there's something to be said for when players are in form and the ownership goes high, go with it. Like, I caught some of late riser Praz and Zoff on their show yesterday. They were talking about themselves, like analysing the season from a data numbers, looking at FPL optimised and all of that kind of stuff. And the underlying feeling from them, like they used the word about themselves numerous times, was boring. Like in the sense that when they looked at their transfers and what they'd done and where they'd captained, so often they went with the statistics and the ownership and that kind of thing. But it played out fine, right? At the end of the season, if you get the rank you want.
It normally will.
So, yeah, that I think was the issue, really, where I've been too stubborn to get onto bandwagons or come off stuff when I've seen it with other players that it's happening.
Why is a template a template?
Well, exactly that.
Because chances are it's good, right?
Cuts well, yeah.
Yeah, most people are on similar players. And yes, the reality is possibly the more boring you're going to be, largely speaking, probably, let's say the safer you'll do.
Yeah.
The less likely you are to have the sort of rank you
I missed a couple of deadlines this year. I think I only missed 2 over the course of the season. Wasn't too bad.
Congratulations.
So, that doesn't help either. Yeah.
You got no chance next year being in Portugal, wouldn't you?
No, I got plenty of chance because all the games are televised there.
Are they an hour ahead or an hour behind?
They're not, neither nor, James. One of the many reasons I chose to go and live in Portugal is the same time zone as England.
Is it really?
Yeah, it never changes. Ironically, Spain does.
Okay.
There are times of the year where it's the same time and times of the year where it's not. Portugal's the same all year round.
So you can't even blame Central European time or nothing like that? Okay, fair enough.
No.
How was your final day, boss?
60 points in the end, which is... Yeah, it's a game week rank of 3.7 million. I saw most were in and around that. Like, it felt very samey. I ended up making one transfer on the party bus. A party bus, I look at it like this is the FPL Juice Boys organised the bus to go to FPL meets on the Sunday. Minibus.
Oh, I see.
School trip, mate.
All this talk about James from Launch Studios was saying limo and stuff.
It was a bus, and we had booze on there. So it was a party in a sort of way, and there was good people on the bus, so that was cool. But yeah, I made one transfer, which is getting rid of Rasmus Højlund, and I bought Cody Gakpo as captain. I just wanted to have a little bit.
Did you captain him as well?
Yeah, I thought if I'm going to buy him on the last day of the season,
sure.
Let's just go for it. There was a lot of talk in terms of like obviously leaks and rumours. There was a lot of talk of Isak Gordon aren't playing.
Oh, can we stop listening to anyone that gives information on Newcastle?
Yeah. So I was at, on the bus, obviously, and also when I was at meets for an hour before, and people were like, oh, there's a rumour of a bug going around the West Ham team and stuff. I was like, listen, you're talking to the wrong person, because I don't listen to leaks. The only person I'll ever take seriously is you, because I know you'll have done enough vetting to warrant it. You won't share it if you don't think there's some credibility to it. Everything else, I'm like, look, oh, what? Wilson's going to start and Isak's not. Well, he'll come off the bench for the last 30 and probably still tear up. I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to do that kind of sideways move. The bug about West Ham, and okay, Bowen ended up tonsillitis, but there wasn't a bug going around everybody else, and the rest of the team, bar Alvarez.
Chinese whispers get exaggerated, don't it?
Yeah, and so I didn't buy into
some info
any of
that
those.
obviously has been correct. Like Gordon didn't play,
correct.
Bowen didn't play, but then it's like it seems to multiply something worse than it is. And
so guess what done me well at the back, James? Double Tottenham defence. Porro and Vicario, 20 points. Actually,
I don't know if it's double Tottenham defence or just the lack of Sheffield United attack.
60 points, 27 of which is nearly half coming from Tottenham, mate, because Sonny's 7-pointer, 27 points out of my Tottenham.
Nice.
Lovely. Well, who would have thought the last day of the season away at Sheffield United?
Not the last time Tottenham players have rewarded on the final day of the season. Certainly not the first time for Dejan Kulusevski either.
My only other return was Isak and Palmer, sorry. And that was it. I had Jackson up top and Gakpo blanked. Kevin De Bruyne.
You not got Foden?
Blanked. No.
Walker,
White,
or
Cucurella.
I love you.
No, I had De Bruyne and Carl Walker and no Gvardiol. So I didn't have 3 optimum City for the end of the season.
Okay.
That was a symptom of the late wild card and then the double game with free hitting and then the doubles that were coming up and so on. So, yeah, I just have to put a line under the season. Like it. The irony is, whatever's happened this season, when we get to Game Week 1 next year, is irrelevant. Like nothing this season
makes the same mistakes again.
Nothing this season will affect my rank next season, right?
No, exactly.
Nothing.
No.
So it doesn't matter.
I don't suppose you're ever going to be in Hall of Fame contention, so don't worry about it. Boss.
Nah, I will.
Yeah.
I will, James.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the long con.
You might want to get on board with Analytics FC if you want to do that sort of shit.
This is the long con, James. I'm building everybody into a ridiculously false sense of security, and then 2 or 3 seasons from now, I'm going to start.
How many
bets,
of our
£10,
listeners, viewers, do you think aren't sleeping at night because of you?
No, it's not that. Don't worry about it. Then I'm going to start making side bets and entering cash leagues, and then the real FPL is just going to come out, and then it's over for everybody. Done.
Is it? Be over for your bank.
Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. 60 points. How many did you score?
One more, sir.
Oh, lovely. Did you take any hits or anything? Nah.
No.
Make any moves? You did. I know you bought Gakpo as well. I saw.
Yeah. I was saying it on the streams on Friday and Saturday and stuff, and people are like, because a lot of people were looking at the same players this week. It was like Arsenal midfielder,
Olise.
So it was Saka or Havertz, and I was like, well, Saka is the protection one for me, but unless there's big green light, I'll probably buy Havertz. Elise Gakpo, I was like, I haven't decided. I'm just going to rock up in a pub in Sheffield on Sunday, and about 15 minutes before deadline, I'm going to decide which one and hit the button. And that's what I did. So I sold my 2 Newcastle guys, Gordon and Isak. That was irrelevant to the news going around. That's who'd have gone anyway.
They were on the bench anyway.
And even if I'd gone Elise, I would have benched Isak, honestly. So I can't look at it and go, oh, I've missed out on them points, whatever. I would have picked Jackson over him. So I wouldn't have had him with the strength I had this week. So there was no one else I was going to be benching if I went with the 2 midfielders, Elise and Havertz, to go with Son, Foden, Palmer. like none of them was getting benched, and I'd have picked Jackson over Isak. So I was never really having the Isak points this week. Returners for me: Porro, Son, Foden, Havertz, Palmer. Yes, bought Cody Gakpo, who between him and Mo Salah both had XGIs of over 1. So they should have done what Palace did, ironically. And then obviously I didn't go Elise, but I was quite obviously keeping an eye on other scores, which I never do, but was doing on Sunday during it. I saw Palace winning 5-0 and I thought, oh, wow, I've been absolutely destroyed here by Michael Elise.
Mateta was the one that did
the
damage.
It was never under consideration for me.
He's only 7.3% at the end of the season with, but that's a hell of a run.
The only forward I was considering was Cody Gakpo, so I'm certainly not going to sit here and go, because I was considering Elise, I was considering Mateta. No, I wasn't. I don't know why, though, by the way.
I mean, they're all three are viable. All three are viable. Eze, Mateta, or Elise as options if people wanted to punt in. I don't think any one.
I don't know why Cody Gakpo
better.
was the only forward that was kind of in my head. Why I wasn't. I was considering Elise, but was never considering Mateta. I don't know why. I can't give you an answer.
I think because what other Liverpool have you got?
Gakpo was it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a case of they got the home fixture against Wolves, Klopp's last game.
Probably.
They could do well. I want some coverage from there. Can't get Salah. Let me chuck one of them in there. And they did okay in the end. How do you feel like, okay, season's done. What do you think about the Premier League this year? One of the better seasons? 2-horse race going quite late. There's been some really good games, some good results. There's been stories throughout the table, top to bottom.
I think it's possibly one you probably won't be able to analyse it properly for a few years, because the big trend of this year is obviously goals being up. You've got like another 37 again on final day. It's like 3.7 per game. The average goals per game is the most it's been in the Premier League era. But we don't know if that's going to be consistent. So we might look now and go, oh, there's been a lot more goals, a lot more enjoyable, but it might just be a forever trend now. Don't know.
Well, I look at it and I think next year, I think it's going to be even better. I actually think that it's going to be one of the most competitive leagues next year, because I look at what Palace did and to get right up there, they're going to be competitive. I think Villa are still going to be super competitive next season. West Ham got Lopetegui coming in. I think they'll be even more consistent, maybe, or competitive there. There's just good managers throughout.
But
I think
this
Chelsea,
time last year,
Tottenham.
We'd have all thought Man United will finish top 4 again. Brighton will push close. Newcastle looking stronger. I think we think these things at the end of every season.
Yeah, and I think we might say that Manchester United did underachieve. They did compared to the previous year, but they were still in and around Chelsea, Newcastle towards the end of the season. There's only like a handful of points behind. They weren't like miles behind. They only finished the season 6 points behind your team. Did they have that shit a season that amounts to only 6 points behind Spurs, who were in 5th in the end? I thought they did okay.
The underlying data would suggest possibly yes.
Yeah, but the points don't at the end of it, right? It depends how you want to judge it. But I think they will kick on depending on what happens managerially. I just think there's a lot of good teams with a lot of good managers and a lot of good players. And it keeps bleeding further and further down the league. And that's why I think it will be even more competitive again next year. I mean, what's to say Marco Silva won't kick on with Fulham? They were good for 2024, right?
Bournemouth.
They will get better under Areola. I think like Unal and a few other players.
Yeah, I've said this several times. I think the standard of the managers in the Premier League now is the highest it's ever
leveled
been.
up, and it's going to level
you've
up.
got some good ones coming up now as well. Like Enzo Maresca's Leicester are going to be really interesting. For example, Kieran McKenna is so highly rated at Ipswich.
Yeah, I mean the talk is that will he even be there at the start of next season? Because people might try and poach Kieran McKenna.
People talking about Brighton a little bit. We discussed that on Paul Gort-Allen's debut as our Ipswich correspondent yesterday on the Fan View, if you want to have a catch up on that one. Just an interesting one on my end of season. So last year, I think this sums up differences this year in certain things. So last year I got 2,484 points, which that finished 224k. This year I got 5 points less, rank halved, 113k.
Less points, higher rank.
Yeah, a lot of that's to do with less clean sheets. I think less Pedro Porros, like on Sunday, you know, your Trents, your Reece Jameses, these kind of things. Goals up and no permacap. In the sense, Haaland has not been like last year where it was, okay, completely forget about this. Yes, the Wolves haul, but otherwise, you could have taken it on. for a lot of this season.
I'm nearly 250 points down on last year.
Oosh.
Didn't
you finish up to 100k last year?
Almost. Last year, I had, based on the double game weeks and stuff, I think from memory, I had like 3 or 4 game weeks in the 100 club and a handful of 80s and 90s. This year, I've had 1 week in the 100 club, and that was the bench boost week.
Okay.
Other than that, the entire season, I didn't have a single week in the 100 club. And last year, I had 3 or 4. Plus, there was some 90s and 80s in there as well. So, just the explosive weeks weren't there. Missed. It's good, though, because that's the beauty of the game. You start again in September. August, sorry. I'll probably start in September, peeps. But you lot start in August. And we go again. And I think it's just ready to play. Ready to play. Let's rattle through some of these games, James, because I want to get into some of the questions that we've had in on the internet as well. Okay. Like the analysis now. It's irrelevant. Ain't going to help nobody pick any
There's no
players.
Talking about next week. There's only talking about next season, isn't there?
No, exactly that. And there's a lot that's going to happen in the transfer window in the summer. And it's nice to just chill. We'll get into the future as we see how it unfolds. First and foremost, we'll start at the Emirates, James. Arsenal 2, Everton 1, managed to get over the line in the end. There must have been a moment where they're thinking, are we shitting the bed here a little bit? But
well, they were never shitting the bed, were they? Because Man City were winning from minute 2. So
yeah, no, but when the opportunity was there, like when West Ham went 2-1 and you're thinking, what happens if West Ham do equalise and then Arsenal can't get the victory? You'll feel awful.
That would have been magnificent. Didn't happen. Interesting one with the incident at the end with the Jesus handball. I actually don't mind that Michael Oliver's allowed the goal to stand, but once he goes over, you assume it's going to be disallowed, don't you? So I don't mind that he stuck to his decision. I think it's a borderline call, so no problem with that at all. On Everton, only the top 3 conceded less goals than them this season. Mm-hmm. You spoke about Brentford a lot on one of the pods we did earlier this week about kind of being actually under the radar, one of the best newcomers and the FPL assets this season, right? Was in
fourth highest scoring. I think the only time
right?
I was saying is that if I said to you a 4.0 defender would be the 4th highest point scoring defender. Actually, sorry, that was before the game. Because that was when we were looking at it with the Juice guys in the studio. So whether he finished after the games...
5th, behind Porro.
Okay, so he went behind Porro after Porro's haul. But 4.0, when's that happened before, James? Lundstrom.
Well...
And that's because he was a bloody midfielder, attacking midfielder.
It's interesting. I mean, look, the reality is, you'd say 5th highest. 124 is not a lot.
No, it's not.
Not a lot. I think in seasons gone by, we'd have generally looked at sort of defenders around the 5 million mark and asked if they could hit 150.
Yeah.
Right. So only 2 players, Saliba and White, have hit above that. Gabriel admittedly would have, if he'd played another 2 minutes on Sunday, obviously came off just before the hour. So the returns there are a lot less. So that's why I think if you're looking at Brentford this year and comparing it to, say, Lundstrom or Aaron Wan-Bissaka or other ones,
he's high, but it's the best of a bad bunch, kind of.
There's no legend on this.
No.
There will be for those who've owned over the last 7-8 game weeks and had these returns from Everton defensive players. Yeah, look, I think it's something to be cautious of next season with Everton. And there's still an unpredictability even within them, right? Because a lot of us did start with Everton defensive, and it started badly, right? I don't think it was a clean sheet in the first 8 or 9 or so. There was so much frustration with Pickford, you might remember, at the start of the season, and people moved on.
For most people, is possibly keeper of the season.
I wouldn't, someone shows Jordan Pickford as goalkeeper of the season, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
FPL keeper, I should say.
Well, FPL keeper, he's the highest scoring by 18 points, mate.
Has to be.
That's huge.
Massive.
He's got 18 more points than David Raya.
Yep.
Admittedly, Raya's had 2 games there with Brentford that he's not played, but it wouldn't have made up that value of points. So, yeah, Jordan Pickford has been the best FPL goalkeeper of the season, and yet most people's story of him, I think, will have been, I sold him in the first 2-3 months of the season, and was understandable at the time when you had, like, Areola playing every week at 4.0 and stuff like that. It's like, move it on. Everton have always had a little bit of unpredictability about where these clean sheet returns come. If you have one next year, it's probably, hold your horses and probably stick with it.
Yeah.
They won't have massive jumps. Like Brentford's he's not going to jump to like 5.0 next year, I don't think. It's actually going to be really interesting how they price defenders next year based on this.
But the low points totals, yeah.
It might be that it comes back around and we have more like Porro hauls at the weekend and stuff like that. If you can get the Chelsea fullbacks back involved and stuff, How do they price someone like Malo Gusto next year? I think these things are interesting. Everyone will want an Arsenal defender at the start of next year, as long as their fixtures aren't terrible, because that's the team that you can...
Even if they are, like,
you can
just
trust
get
them
it
both,
done,
really.
right, at the end of the day.
And even the lack of clean sheet here is a fluke, isn't it? From Garner Gay's free kick, which is beautifully headed in by Declan Rice. It's an own goal, that, isn't it?
I was curious. I was going to ask you about that. Is there any rule around deflections of set pieces that's different to deflections off like an open play shot?
Well, no. For me, is the shot on target, then it's your goal.
Right. And I didn't know if, like, obviously when you take a set piece and you're aiming for goal, it's a shot on target. Like, you're trying to aim for goal. Therefore, do they look at it as they don't bother with like OGs off
the shots on target
from set pieces versus open play?
They'll give it to the player if the shot's on target. I'm not sure this one was. Anyway, Arsenal did get the victory, which looks like largely was merited. Havertz has had a ton of chances, so if you did buy him this week, you're obviously pleased he's got the return right at the end. Could have had more.
You think reclassification for him next year?
As forward,
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think so. No Saka. Actually didn't play. And I think the one that a few of us picked up on that was enough for me to go Havertz was this picture that was posted at the Emirates of all the squad with David Raya and his Golden Glove award. Like, all the first team squad are there. Saka wasn't. I just thought that was a bit odd.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, sometimes the investigative stuff should be with what you see rather than what you're necessarily hearing. I just looked at that and thought, it's a bit strange, that. What's the reasoning here? So we understand it's a minor calf problem. He'll be fine for England, but also it feels like a little bit of a surprise that they didn't just risk him. I don't know. They obviously didn't need to.
I feel like they probably thought. Well, when I saw that he wasn't playing, I thought they had enough firepower to get over the line without him.
Martinelli, who played on the right, looks like he had some lively moments. I think Arsenal's problem, and I discussed this with Clayton this time last year, is actually identifying which bits of this team you want to improve, because it's pretty strong, right? In a non-Man City era, this wins the league, or nearly all the time. So I think they'll want another 6 so they can free up Declan Rice to play this left 8 role more and more. There'll be talk about a new 9 and stuff, but actually Havertz,
he's been good.
He's been really good the last 2 months or so, and actually getting the returns to go with it now. So it'd be difficult for Arsenal to find the right purchases, I think. But
I think
they'll go and spend.
A backup to Odegaard, but how do you back up Odegaard? Like, you got Fabio Vieira or Smith Rowe or what have you. They'll never be at the same standard. It's like for City, how do you replace a De Bruyne or something? They're that good.
That's what I'm saying. This is the problem. So
they do need a backup to him. I mean, Vieira plays I think Smith Rowe will leave. So
last year we knew Xhaka was going to go, and we knew, although he had a very good season for Arsenal last year, we knew that was an area of definitive improvement. If Rice is going to play left-sided 8, I think they can look at the 6th position and go, right, definitive improvement. You might look now and go a more natural left back, because obviously Tomiyasu has been playing there, scored at the weekend.
Timber hasn't played. So.
Exactly that. So, yeah, interesting. They've got that problem, and it's a good problem, but exactly what you said. If Odegaard got injured for 3-4 months, like, what you're playing there cannot be to the same standard. You can't buy someone of that quality who's just going to sit there. Martin Odegaard's had an outstanding football season. So the difficult balance they'll find is
Segue,
tricky.
James. There is one player that they could buy. If they had no other problems to fix, just use your entire budget and get Alexander Isak to your club.
It's been rumoured. And Bruno Guimaraes.
As a pair.
It wouldn't be both, but there is still talk that one of those players might
they got one 100, 120.
Newcastle.
I mean, he's worth 100, 120. Isak, he's such a good player. Newcastle 4, Brentford 2. I mean, Brentford 2, Newcastle 4, if you want to say it the right way round. They've had a better second half of the season, Newcastle, when they've got more consistency in their team.
Players.
Is basically it. Pope's back. Pope came back now, obviously, and back in the team. You only think they're going to be better next year. Like, they don't. It's not a panic stations. I don't feel like it's a get rid of Eddie Howe. I don't think that they need to think like that.
I don't understand why
they also that. Like with FFP and the restrictions which we know they've got. They're not able to go and buy a team of Galacticos and then get a Galacticos manager like a Mourinho or some dumbness like that. I think they just build steadily. But I think for Brentford and Newcastle, like, if vultures come and they need to sell, they might lose a couple of players. For Brentford as well, if like this whole Thomas Frank to Manchester United, if they lose the manager and then Tony goes and then maybe someone picks off one or two other players, it's going to be hard for them next season. I think Brentford are the ones that are going to still be in and around it in the bottom 6 or 7 next year, 5 or 6.
A simple analysis on Newcastle is probably a bit dull, but comparing this year on the year before, that back line, including the goalkeeper, I think it all started at least 32 games. So Trippier, Schär, Botman, Byrne, Pope, last year, all started between them like circa like 160 games or so as a collective.
Yep.
This year, they've all had problems, haven't they, other than Dan Byrne. So if you look at the amount of goals they've scored, because I want to say it's the most goals they've scored in the Premier League season, actually.
Okay. Even with Beardsley and Cole smashing them in.
Listen, let me tell you something truthfully. If you go back and look at the Entertainers team, the Newcastle 1995-96 team, you won't believe how many goals they scored.
It's little. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of it might even be the lowest scoring team ever to finish second. It's really low. It's in the 50s, I think. And
goals scored?
Yeah.
And Man United scored 50 goals this season.
Have a look, Premier League table 95-96. You won't believe it. So in terms
Man United scored 50 goals this season. That's nothing.
I think most of the teams did. I mean, some teams are in sort of 60s, 70s have had shit season this year. Again,
95, 96,
goals are up.
did you say?
95, 96. They've got 50-something, I think, Newcastle.
Mad.
Anyway, they've scored the most goals in the Premier League season up front. They've obviously got talented players. Anthony Gordon's had a really good season. Harvey Barnes is another one. It's been injury interrupted, right? Jacob Murphy's actually played well for them this year. His brother scored twice for Oxford on Saturday as well. And God, is he a spit of him. So I think Newcastle can have mitigating for this season. It looks like they're trying to get a couple of players on frees already. There's some sort of tossing Adebayo from Fulham and Lloyd Kelly from Bournemouth. 2 players are out of contracts. And they'll both be competitive players who can stand in. Obviously, Botman's going to be out till sort of Christmassy or so, isn't he? Christmassy or so, as you do.
Xmas.
So they certainly want to get reinforcements in. That's been their problem, right? When they had that plethora of injuries in the winter period, and Eddie Howe weren't even using subs, was he? He's like, I don't want to use any of this. Young boy Lewis Miley did really well, was playing like every week for a while, then looked shattered for a while. Young player and will emerge further for them in the future. So them is about squad building now, because the chances are they will still have European football next year, and if it's the Conference League, which it will be, unless obviously United win on Saturday, they're probably going to go deep in that, right?
Yeah.
So you are going to need the squad.
Yeah, there's no reason for them to think they shouldn't be hitting semis in the
Villa
final.
got semi. You won it the year before. The year before was us, wasn't it? When we got thrown out because we couldn't play the game.
COVID.
So the chances are, I think if you're an English team in the Conference League, you've got to think you're going to be playing Europe in April. It's highly likely, I think.
Yep.
So that's a potential challenge next year, which Newcastle will embrace, and I'm sure their fans will be thinking that is a definite possible route to a trophy next year, right, and end this barren run they've had. For Brentford, I think Thomas Frank summed it up pretty well last year in terms of after the game. Good first season, great second season, third season, okay. Let's remember as well, they've had a lot of injury problems as well, and that don't get talked about because they're not like of Newcastle's size, right? But they've basically not had either fullback for 6 months. They've had issues throughout the rest of the team. Obviously didn't have Tony in the first part of the season. Tony came back. Bumo was obviously AFCON and injured for a while as well. So they've had their own problems, and I think they'll probably be disappointed with this season, but they've also still hit, nearly 40 points? Been very safe, haven't they? And I don't look at them and think, oh, you'll be in the shit next year. I think they'll be all right. Tony will probably go. I think that's pretty much well documented. I don't agree with
that. I think it all depends on who goes, really, for them. Because even like an Mbomo, right?
They'll reinvest as well. We know they were trying to buy like Bakayoko last year and haven't spent that money.
That's all unknowns, right? Where the players come in and you don't know if they'll be to the standard of. There are enough good players there. I think, like with a good manager like Thomas Frank, will they be all right? More likely than not. But if Tony was to go, Mbomo, for example, he's young, right? He's 24, 25. He's that side of 20. There's going to be clubs out there that have seen and said, actually, do you know what? Maybe we make a 40, 50 million pound bid. Can we get him, for example?
And then they've got, 150 to invest in the squad? This is a good player. Lewis Potter's a good player.
just buying players is no guarantee of anything. Which is another
but
segue.
Brentford have also done their business pretty well historically.
Generally, they have. Yeah. And you'd want Thomas Frank to stay there and stuff. I'm not overly
He's the
worried,
biggest person at that football club. That would be the concern for them, is if the day comes where he goes, I want a different challenge. Then you would worry for them.
I wonder if the challenge he wants is Manchester United 2, Brighton 0. Other way around again, the Brighton 0, Manchester United.
Would he jump to Brighton? I don't think so.
No, Manchester United. If Erik ten Hag was to leave, his name has been mentioned numerous times there. They'll be happy to win at Brighton. I mean, I suppose the story of this game was a little bit of shock on the Saturday.
Chances.
No, they're announcing that De Zerbi is leaving the day before the final day.
Oh my God.
It's very tempting to always bring it back down to your club and stuff, but at least we made the effort to give him a week to have a goodbye and farewell and send off. And we got criticism for the way we got Moyes out. I felt like, hang on a second, this is all a bit didn't quite sit right. Unless I don't know what the decision making was or what have you. So many clubs, players are leaving at the end of have announced it a week. Like Klopp announced it ages ago, but Mbappe announced it for PSG and stuff. But to make it clear, this was the day before, and I think everybody from Brighton's just like, what?
I think
there's no doubt that people knew that eventually he was gonna go, right?
Yeah, Brighton fans aren't silly, right?
But it's like 24 hours from the game. You're thinking last day of the season, let's have a nice day out at the Amex at home. Oh, actually, the main story is we're losing our manager.
But Brighton fans know where they're at and their level, right? They understand if a De Zerbi wants to go to a Bayern Munich, then he's going to go. And I'm not saying that's happening at all. Doesn't sound like it, by the way. But I disagree with your point because I don't think this has been in the works for a while.
This is it. So what's the true story? What's happened here? Has there been a bust up on the Saturday or something? I think
not a bust up. There's been a disagreement about what happens next in terms of policy, of recruitment, perhaps stuff at youth level as well. There have been murmurs of there's been a disagreement and the two camps have gone, okay, let's call it now at the end of the season.
Similar to Lopetegui's end at Wolves, where they just couldn't see eye to eye on direction of the football club.
Lopetegui reckons he was promised certain amounts of money, which Wolves never really had, so. And then he agreed to stay till they appointed their guy. Strange. Anyway, I think Roberto De Zerbi's done a really good job at Brighton. I also think, however, it would be easy to overlook the fact they're 1 win in 10 or so. They've finished 11th is pretty surprising by the end. And I suppose their supporters are probably not happy having finished behind Palace, who have gone in the opposite direction. Have Palace been better than Brighton across this whole football season? Well, I suppose the league table doesn't lie. In the end, they have been, but that's Brighton sitting in 11th doesn't look right to me. I think they're better than that. They too also have had massive injury problems throughout this season. We've barely seen Mitoma. Solly Marsh has been out for 6 months.
We can't say that about every team, though, that they've had injury problems.
No, but I'm just saying.
Everybody has them now. I think it's like a...
It's easy to forget. If you're a Brighton or a Brentford, you don't get the coverage of it as, say, a Newcastle or a Man United or a Tottenham. You just don't, right? And I think it needs to be flagged to say, well, why have Brighton finished 11th? Well, I think a big reason for that was coupling European football with Premier League football, the amount of rotation the manager does, and then you're losing key players, without Lewis Dunk yesterday as well. And that first goal probably doesn't happen. Sunday. That first goal probably doesn't happen if Lewis Dunk's on the pitch because the initial header will get cut out. Absolutely. So, listen, Brighton, here's what I would say about them. I'm always convinced about this. Brighton would have known what they wanted to do months ago because they would have known this was a possibility, I think, or that someone would come for him. They haven't been sitting there thinking, well, no one will want De Zerbi in the summer. We won't think about this.
No,
Brighton
I
would
think
have
they
been planning.
Know. Yeah, you're right.
They'd have been planning for this for a while. And Kieran McKenna's name was getting mentioned previously, and that's why there's a bit of a shit yourself kind of feeling amongst some of the Ipswich fan base at the moment. And that job is just perfect for a stepping stone. I apologise to Brighton fans for saying it, but it is. To go from the Ipswich coming up on back-to-back promotions to go straight into Manchester United, for example, where he worked. It's not to say it can't happen, but if he starts badly, whereas if he goes to Brighton, very stable football club, really well run by their owner, they've got all the analytic stuff behind them, etc. You do well, there's less pressure, then you make the next jump to one of the big six.
I don't know if it's a good stepping stone.
I think it's near enough the safest job you could have.
Who was before De Zerbi?
Potter.
And his step up?
Was to Chelsea.
Failed.
Yeah.
Who was before Potter?
Chris Hughton.
Where's he?
Ghana. I don't know if he might have left them.
I don't know.
Left Nico? Did he get sacked after AFCON? I feel like he might have.
I feel like
he's laughing. He did.
It was before Chris Hughton.
Oh crap! Chris Hughton took him up, wasn't he? It was Gus Poyet maybe or Sammy Hippie.
Well, this is the thing. Where are these guys? So whether or not it's a stepping stone up to another club, none of them have managed Brighton, done a great job, and then done well at the next big club, a big six club. So sometimes you find the right fit. Like Graham Potter, would he have continued
Potter will
to do
still
well?
get another chance. Potter might be walking into the
He
England
will
job
somewhere,
in
but
6
he's
weeks,
not
mate.
like now. He's not. We're not talking about big six clubs, though.
He might be taking the England job.
Well, that's a different kettle of fish with international football. Anyway, Ten Hag, is he staying though at Man United? You seem to think no. I seem to think yes.
I don't know, man.
Casemiro's now throwing his toys out the pram.
Is he? What's he said?
He's just kind of feels disrespected, I think. A year ago, people were thinking he's great, and now
fair enough. By all accounts, apparently
heap.
he played really well actually on Sunday. Not that I've seen a huge amount of the game. He's obviously played centre back again, and then moved into midfield a little bit later on in the game. There seems to be more people now think Ten Hag's going to stay.
I think he's going to stay. I don't think there's any value in moving.
I think if they win, I think if they win Saturday, he might. But I don't see it working now, personally.
I think there's still more to be done in the dressing room in terms of getting rid of players than anything else.
If they want to stick with him and go for it as a competitor with them, I'm like, yeah, crack on. I've said that a few times. Crack on now. Because unfortunately, when they hit bad moments, it just kind of hits the skids really badly. And this game, actually, have got away with this.
You can talk about their injuries, though?
If you look at the chances, yeah, I'll get there. If you look at the chances they've given up in the first half, like Brighton should have had the game finished by half time. It then interestingly scored a goal. I said about Lewis Dunk might have cut it out. That goal for Dalot has been coming for ages. Me and Clayton spoke about this after they played at Luton and had just invested in Dalot. And he was like, did you know he was going to make these long distance runs from fullback into the centre forward position for balls over the top? I was like, no, Clayton, that wasn't in the plan. But actually, once I'd noticed it, you couldn't unnotice it. And that's been coming for a while, that particular goal. It's not to say he's an amazing FPL asset. But I think he's one of the United players could probably hold his head up quite high on this season, actually. Yes, they've had massive injuries as well, particularly defensively. And? Yeah.
It's what it is. Just got to keep moving. Let's talk about Burnley 1, who are relegated, obviously, now, and Nottingham Forest 2, who are staying with us in the Premier League. Forest, obviously... it's a bit of a funny one. I think they'll still be in and around the bottom 5, 6 next season. But what they have done under Nuno is definitely score goals in the second half of the season. They've been consistently chipping away.
And their underlighting's good defensively as well.
Chris Wood's had a good stint. We know Gibbs White's a good player. Hudson-Odoi, Elanga. They've got firepower up there that they can chip away and score 2-3 goals. I think that's one thing that clubs at the bottom will struggle with is scoring goals. If you can score goals, you give yourself a chance in any game to nick it. So as much as I think they'll struggle next year, just because the level will be high, I still think if they can keep chunks of the squad together, they'll do well. Having said that, like I've heard your club mentioned with Hudson-Odoi as a potential. So
and Gibbs White.
There'll be some of them. There'll be people in the market try and pick some of these players off.
I think
we know that they're on the wire with FFP because they obviously lost points this year.
They should be all right this year because obviously the Brennan Johnson money will go on this year's accounts.
And if they can make some money on one or two others.
But there is a suggestion that it was suggested that they would still have to sell sort of circa 30 million's worth possibly before the end of June. But I also said to you, there's a number of people like Mangala are out on loan, and that'll be like half the money done. So they don't. It's not as bad as it sounds. I've got people already kind of out the club that's going to cover a lot of that off. I imagine there probably will be one player that will leave, be it a Murillo or a Gibbs White or maybe even a Hudson-Odoi, who they got for peanuts, right? 4 million. So we've been very critical of Forest business, but there's been some good ones in there. Murillo is another great case of that as well.
Even Brennan Johnson, there's good business by the time they sold him to you.
I mean, the fee they got, yeah, it is actually.
I mean, what they bought him for and what they sold him for, they must have made a decent profit.
Come through the academy, Brennan Johnson?
Possibly. But let's also...
I think he's a Forest boy, isn't he? He's a Welsh boy, but he's come through the Forest Academy, I think.
They made some bad decisions as well. Jesse Lingard says hello, Nottingham Forest fan.
Yeah, I think they'll probably have quite a busy summer again, because they generally do, don't they? So let's
nothing better to do.
Let's see where we sit next year.
The sales are on.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a change.
Managerial.
With Nuno, yeah.
I mean, you said Mark said that Southern's.
Yeah, but then when I spoke to him, he was a little less sure about it. Certainly, I think Mark would be happy for him to have the start of next season and see how it goes.
That makes sense.
Start on a level footing with everybody else. De Zerbi's name has been mentioned, which would be weird, wouldn't it?
At Forest?
Yeah, I couldn't see that.
No, me neither.
No.
Bit of a ongoing chat about managerial. Chelsea have ended up finishing the season 5th under Poch. 2-1 home win here against Bournemouth. Been decent. Caicedo's goal. Nice. I don't think it pays back the transfer fee.
Good clearance, wasn't it?
I think they've found some rhythm. I mean, led by Cole Palmer. What a season, what a player. Like, he's definitely going to be in the squad at 2 o'clock today.
Well, there might be a riot if he's not. Caicedo has been a big reason for this upturn recently, actually.
Well, there's been talk about...
he's been really good every time I've watched him recently.
Between when Enzo Fernandez came out of the team and how Chelsea's results have been improved. I don't know... Like, Enzo Fernandez is a class player, so you can't... I think it's more correlation rather than causation that Fernandez being at the team has made them better. But there's certain players that then they've gone with, let's say... youth rather than tried and tried. So Mudryk over Raheem Sterling has been playing, for example, or Madueke's been getting into the team on the right-hand side rather than another multi-million pound. I mean, Madueke they still pay money for, but when you've got a team which is like Gallagher and Madueke and Cole Palmer and...
if you think of the legs of the two in midfield, there's been a score fault for a while. Chelsea are better with having Gallagher deeper. Think of Gallagher and Caicedo and the energy there.
Yeah, it's decent.
Like, they'll get about the pitch really well for you, won't they? That's also allowed, obviously, Palmer to play a more prominent central role, and his decision-making is just so spot on, as we've discussed several times. That then allows an extra attacking player on the pitch as well, which I think helps sort of Jackson with his returns during this period as well. So I don't want to say they stumbled on this. That's not fair at all. But I think that certain players have stepped up, and Caicedo is one of them.
When you say you stumble across it, the problem is he had a 5,000-piece jigsaw. Did Pochettino? He's got so many players in the squad,
and they've also
and
had
he's got to test it around
a lot of injuries. Oh, everyone's had a lot of injuries. No, Arsenal haven't actually. No.
Yeah, but here's the thing: it's a squad game. So take my club.
Chelsea have got a squad.
take my club for example. We didn't have a lot of injuries, right? We didn't have a lot of injuries.
No, I think yours is the lowest actually,
but we also had no bench because we had kids on there, because we had no squad. So even though we're not getting injuries and losing players, the amount of times that you're able to rotate and freshen it up is also rubbish. That's where it comes down to, okay, what's worse, having loads of injuries or having no bench? It's the same problem. No squad. You need a squad of 24, 26. You need enough players or whatever. What's the 25 people in a squad now in Premier League? You need a squad, and that's where you have to deal with injuries.
Yeah, but you don't have to name under 21s in that as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they buy all the kids up. But I think Chelsea have finished well. I mean, there's no question about Poch.
They're buying some other one now, aren't they? Some Brazilian
Wilson,
kid.
yeah. But he can't join till next year, April, because he's only 17 years old.
Okay.
So you have to wait till he's an adult before he's allowed to sign. But it's not pennies. He's like 40 million euros is the deal. So it's not like a kid that they're signing on small change. Poch is going to stay, right? There's no doubt about that in my mind. And he should stay.
I can only think if there is a change, and I don't think there'll be one, and there shouldn't be one. They're fourth best in 2024, so just 110, drawn 5, lost 3. So that's good, right? It's 35 points from 18 played. You're just under 2 points per game. You would walk to fourth if you maintain that sort of thing. Chelsea would like to think they'll be in contention for that next season. I think thinking beyond fourth would be very unlikely. But I'm sure Chelsea fans at this moment will think, yeah, we could push for fourth next year, definitely. They should at least have a go at it. I could only think if there was a change that decision might have been made a while ago, i.e. they were in a point in February around the Carabao Cup final, defeat to Wolves, where there might have been one or two things there where they started thinking, let's start looking at something else. And it might be that they've started looking at something and then all shit results have got better, and that might also mean that they've changed their mind. Pochettino's also give some interesting kind of, I feel like, power comments recently about, there's no guarantee that we'll stay. We might decide to move on.
His team.
Yeah, as in his coaching staff, which I'm sure he doesn't mean. I think he's probably just looking for a bit of a power shift there because he's actually getting the results.
Now that he's popular. I mean, what's the feeling amongst the fan base?
I'd be surprised if many Chelsea fans didn't want him to start as their manager next season. I'm pretty confident that he will.
Yeah, I agree with you as well.
Bournemouth, though, it should be said, easy could have got something out of this. 22 shots on goal. XG was sort of double. Chelsea had this massive mischance at the end where Dominic Solanke should have scored. He didn't start because he'd been a little bit of a doubt of a minor hip problem. Neto came back in goal. I mean, it's pretty clear Bournemouth are heading in the right direction under their manager as well. I think a lot of the discourse around this summer might be about Solanke. There will be some interest.
No doubt about it.
Nudge, nudge, Tottenham.
I've been really interested in this in Enes Ünal as well next season. I feel like he's got 6 attacking returns in 317 minutes.
Has he really?
Yeah, mate. It's not for the minute 317 minutes. 6 attacking returns. I want to see if he starts centrally.
He's a very different profile player. He's quite
to Solanke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
comes across quite wiry.
I think for next season, if he can play in behind or what position he takes up, I think he could be a cheap enabler.
I think generally when they've had minutes together, Solanke's dropped in a bit shorter.
Right. I can't see him going up in price, put it that way. He's still going to be 5 million, 5.5 million, that type of thing.
Well, that's the sort of one where if he is in at that price and Bournemouth don't replace and they go, this is going to be our guy, and Solanke moves on, then... Yeah, this is where they've got to be careful. You've always got to be... people like, when is the game launching? When's the game launching? Me, personally, I think they should probably launch the game at the end of July once you've got a lot of business done.
Yep.
Because things like that will fall into place. And it's like, okay, that's everyone's third forward. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many, right? What happens to Eddie Nketiah? Does he get a move? Do you price players with the view that they could potentially get a move or not? Right?
We had that discussion with him last year, didn't we? With Nketiah, there was a lot of Palace talk, wasn't there?
Yeah.
If he moves, he's definitely going to be my third forward. Yeah, you got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
Because we don't want a game where everyone's got the same team. I know people, oh my God, yeah, I've got a great 4.5 forward. Yeah, but so's everybody else.
This is the thing.
Be careful.
I think there's a few, like Smith Rowe's one, I think could be dangerous. Like if they price him at 5 or 5.5 million, even 5.5 million, then he gets a move to like a West Ham or something. If Paqueta goes, and he plays number 10, if he can stay fit, he'll 10 goals, 10 assists.
The game this year, I mean, look, there's people like Palmer, Foden should be in for some hefty price rises, in my opinion. The game should launch and we should all be able to sit there and go, oh, this is tough. Because if it's not tough when they launch the game in 3 weeks or whenever it's going to be, then it ain't going to be tough when you hit August. So it's got to, when the game opens, it's got to be, whoa, I think this is going to be tough. Because it might just be that narratives happen like that. Solanke goes, Bournemouth don't replace. Okay, there's the third forward, and shit becomes a lot easier. So if it's easy in mid-June, then you're just going to end up with so many people with the same team again, which is fine if that's what they want the game to be.
Crystal Palace 5, Aston Villa 0. Look, Aston Villa wasted, and quite rightly so, from qualifying for the Champions League earlier in the week. Like I don't care about Villa rolling over like this at all because they deserve a weaker celebration.
I don't think Villa fans care.
Crack on, do what you need to do. I didn't own any Palace. Fine, anybody that owned Palace, you've given them a massive jump on me, but I don't care. And Palace, on the other hand, I like to see this, and I think it's really interesting where so many of the points for Palace over the last 6-7 weeks where they've been good have been centred around 4 players, and they're the 4 that did all the goals and assists in this game. Eze, Elise, Mateta, Munoz. Those 4 will have all the ownership. In fact, I'm even going to check, James, how it drops off from those guys. And Munoz will be particularly high because obviously defender.
While you check, just a couple of words on Villa. Congratulations to them, as we said last year. I also spoke about when Tottenham first got in, and then we lost 4-2 at Burnley on the final day, and we was all doing the conga and stuff like it didn't matter. Same thing, everyone was celebrating and stuff. I'm sure Villa fans aren't happy looking at a 5-0 defeat, but in the scheme of things, it's fine. There's also people like Olsen's played in goal, Callum Chambers has played in midfield. They've ended up limping to the end. If we're honest, right? I think they've got 2 points in the last 4 or so. They've limped to it. And to repeat what I said on Thursday's pod last week, that there is a little bit of concerning underlying data here that you might want to think about going into next season. It's not to say Villa fans shouldn't enjoy their summer and look forward to Champions League football. You should. I'm just saying they'll find it very difficult, I think, to repeat this next year. If they do, fair fucks to them. Emery had his son on the bench for this. I didn't even know he had one. And I definitely didn't know he was an Aston Villa player, but apparently his son was on the subs bench. So
wow.
There's also speculation that someone will have to be sold, possibly from a homegrown perspective. I've heard some noises that there is even some concern about Watkins being that player, if a bid came in that was big enough. I don't think he would, because I think he'd be like, I want to play for Villa in the Champions League. Jacob Ramsey, who's been injured recently, is a player I really like. His name's been mentioned recently. Supposedly he really wants to stay as well. But Villa might have to make a call, possibly, because they're on the edge from the financial perspective.
When it comes to Crystal Palace, I was chatting shit. Do you know the highest owned player from Crystal Palace's team selected by, and significantly as well, double anybody else?
Eze?
No. Mateta is 7.3%. This player has double Mateta's ownership.
Is it like some 4.0?
Joachim Andersen.
Oh, but that's dead shit because start the season, so right.
So high, he's the highest owned, and then Mateta Eze Elise.
That's because he's not. Nobody listening to this has
and
got
then
Joachim Andersen.
Tarek Mitchell below that.
Joachim Andersen was top scoring defender going into about game week 10, wasn't he? So
was he? Yeah, I mean, he scored early on. That's why. But yeah, I'm surprised by that. Not many people went in on Munoz. Obviously, he was a late flavour of the season, less than 1% ownership.
He's another one. Like, if Palace have good fixtures at the start of next season and he's 4.5,
yeah,
it'd be in everyone's team. So, don't tell him, James. Don't make him 4.5. Seriously.
5. Make
the shit tougher. Can't be that. If they have good fixtures and he's 4.5, he's going in so many teams. Because these little returns recently have been coming. They come as no surprise to anybody. And there's a lot of people who have actually probably end up benching this week, and that's understandable. Palace's summer is going to be about who don't go.
Keep your players.
I mean, we even got asked on the Q&A yesterday, didn't we? Could they do a Leicester?
Yeah.
Because of how well they've done.
I think they could do a Villa, but I don't think they could do a Leicester.
The big thing is, it's not just keeping Eze and Elise. It's keeping them fit.
Well, that's never happened, so...
No, well, unfortunately, that's true. And Mateta's just hit this incredible streak.
Yeah.
That I don't know if it will continue. I was reading a piece on Scout this morning, and his conversion rate since Glasner came in is 48%.
Whoa.
Which, that's not sustainable.
No,
that's
people don't
staggering.
score 1 in 2 shots unless you're Erling Haaland.
No, it's a madness. Your conversion rate, you're going to be, depending on how good, bad you are, somewhere between sort of 10 and 20. Like 48%. Sure, it's a fairly small sample, but it's over sort of a 12, 13 game stretch. That's a madness. It's obviously a player who's full of confidence and has done really well. But yeah, I don't see that for lasting. I don't see Mateta winning the Golden Boot next year. That's going to be like my Rory Jennings moment, isn't it? But I don't see Mateta winning the Golden Boot next year.
I think you predicting that is not anywhere near as crazy as Rory Jennings saying Haaland's going to flop. So, no, it's not your Rory Jennings moment. Liverpool 2, Wolves 0. Obviously, disappointing end to the season for Wolves and also Nico's cousin. Red card for Nelson. Was he there? Naughty boy, wasn't he?
But Nico, red card, yes or no? Your cuz?
Keep it in the fam.
Wolves have a lot to complain about with decisions this year. This isn't one of them for me.
Yeah, well, they've obviously filed the anti-VAR.
Very, very straightforward this. Straight leg, over the top of the ball, game done. End of. It's a red card for me.
Yeah. Liverpool's going to be an interesting one now with Klopp leaving. I mean, there's players there that they're so wedded to Klopp. Like, you associate Van Dijk with Klopp. You associate Salah with Klopp. You associate Alisson with Klopp. Arnie slots in now, as Klopp wanted to chant.
How did it go? Do you want to do that again?
Arnie Klopp. That's one thing. Arnie Slot, sorry. One thing managers shouldn't do is get the microphone and then start doing chants on the pitch. It just sounded like a drunk German at Oktoberfest. Did Klopp, but Arnie Slot.
That's fine. It also had echoes of Sir Alex Ferguson when he left. Sir Alex
support your new manager now. Give him your.
You must get behind him. You must get behind your new manager. And 11 years later, Manchester United fans are still trying to do that.
Yeah.
So look, I think next season will be very difficult for Liverpool because it's just a seismic change. And I think the person they've appointed is probably on the face of it a pretty good appointment. And he might go on and win the league there as their manager and stuff. I just think next year will probably be really difficult because the standards there are high, really high. And I think there's a few of them as well. I think naturally, as human beings, are going to miss the person that's leaving. You've seen one of Trent's interviews. Bloody hell. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. So many of the players associate with Klopp as a hand in hand.
Yes.
I think we'd find the same with Man City when Guardiola leaves.
Yes,
like De
absolutely.
Bruyne and Guardiola. Like I felt that with Aguero and Guardiola. They were like peas in a pod.
Hold up. We can't replace him by Erling Haaland. Wanker Pep, honestly.
I have made a robot to replace.
We cannot possibly replace him by Erling Haaland. Okay, fine. I think next year it'll be tough for Liverpool. I don't see Liverpool finishing top 2 next year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have a dip that's lower. Just because of the change in it. I think it'd be an important summer for them. Part of that will be there's players out of contract next year. So there's Trent.
Trent's got 1 year. Salah's got 1 year.
Virgil van Dijk, Mo Salah.
I think Nunez's body language. A lot of people were scathing about it, particularly even in Klopp's.
Maybe he's fallen out with Klopp. Who knows?
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see.
So I think
yet they still have
the club needs to settle
there.
this. Of course they do,
like
mate.
Kwanzaa's scored and he's had a good season. You've still got Harvey Elliott. You've still got Curtis Jones.
McAllister's had a great first
season.
Szoboszlai really hit the ground running. Not so good second half of the season.
Yeah, I think adapting to the pace of the Premier League. I think Gakpo is a perfect replacement for Firmino. When Luis Diaz came in, we thought of him as potentially one of the world-class signings that could kick on. They have the talent there. In the first 11, maybe not the depth.
I just don't know if I can see them hitting even the total they've hit this year.
But I think they'll spend money. Because last year they were so close to dropping 100 million on Caicedo. They've still got cash kicking around. I think they'll drop some money. So let's see who they buy. Yeah. And historically, they've done good business. Like you don't see too many flops at Liverpool where they've bought players
when
that haven't
they needed
worked
to.
out.
They've gone relatively heavy, haven't they? I mean, the Van Dijk money obviously proved to be well worth it, but it was still at the time it was like, woof, that's
but like even Mane was expensive, right? And you think, oh, that's a lot of money. And then he kicks
Alisson
on.
was a decent size for a goalkeeper, and a lot of this was funded by
Alisson was a world record price for a goalkeeper when they signed him. I'm sure I saw they'd paid the world record for a goalkeeper and a defender. Under Klopp in terms of money, because Klopp was going on about not spending a lot of money. They have spent money.
If Mo did go, they're obviously gonna
buy Jarrod Bowen.
And actually, to go back to the FPL point in terms of next season as well, one of the things that really didn't help this year, obviously, which is no one's fault, it was obviously Kane going, taking that extra premium away, right? Well, if you're just leaving it as Haaland and Salah right at the top again, if Mo does go, this again, it's not going to help the game. So you've got to shove up these Palmers and Fodens like Watkins, shove all these guys really
Even
up.
Saka was at 8.5. He needs to be at 10 now. And
all them players should be 10 and above next year, I think.
Luton 2, Fulham 4. What price should Harry Wilson be next year, James? Did you buy him? Nah, no. But two assists and a goal. Look, I think Fulham should be really happy with their season. They've definitely... they've had some great results, some great days out, smashed some teams at home, played good attacking football. I think Fulham have really over-delivered versus what I thought they would. I thought they'd be in a relegation battle, mate, and they've never been in a relegation battle all season.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that they lost Mitrovic, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I
think
they've had
probably will lose Palhinha this summer.
I think they've had a season that's been challenging. I think there's moments where Silva's been pretty unhappy, like after they demolished my team had a couple of inconsistent results. That the treble changed, didn't they, at Nottingham Forest when they were like 2-0 down after half hour. He was like, I want to take the whole team off. So they've had some inconsistencies. Their away results this season have not been good enough. He's essentially picked a second string attack on Sunday. Jimenez come back in. Harry Wilson played the right, Adama Traore on the left. Brought Harrison Reed back into the team as well. Iwobi played a more central role, which possibly highlights that there is a bit of squad depth there, but it also, I think, highlights what Luton Town's season has been, summed up by Morris scoring again, Doughty finishing the season, I think, with the most attacking returns of any defender. But yeah, it's not good enough for them to get any points from a football match. That's their season, isn't it? I think they've won in 26 or 27. They haven't scored, and that was at Arsenal.
Wow.
It's always score.
Yeah.
But they normally concede more, right? They've gone down because of the defensive stuff. Actually, offensively, they've been above average, I think, for an attacking team getting promoted. How many goals they finish on?
Scored.
Yeah,
I'm going to let you know.
It's got to be towards 50.
While I pull up the league table, James, I will also go back to 95-96. They actually scored 66 goals, James.
Who, Newcastle?
Newcastle did that season.
Okay.
But
it's more than I thought.
What you're probably also thinking about, though, is Aston Villa finished 4th that season.
It's got like 38 or something. What did they score?
52.
Okay.
And Arsenal finished 5th that season. Guess how many they scored?
I mean, it's kind of the end of the Graham era, isn't it? It's
49.
Is that Wenger's first season? No, Bruce Frick's season, isn't it?
49.
Yeah.
They only conceded 32. But to be honest, like Man United won the league on 73 goals. Liverpool won on 70. It's not gonna cut it now. You need to.
The game's changed.
Yeah.
You only have to look at that table from 30 years ago to now. Who are we talking about?
Luton. And how many goals they have scored? I've got it just in front of me. Come on, computer.
In your own time.
52.
Yeah.
Conceded 85.
That's a madness for a team finishing 18th. Okay. Ross Barkley, we think, is going to leave. He's on a free transfer. He's actually been linked quite heavily with Villa over the last 24 hours or so. He obviously did have a loan spell there before as well. That might give an indication of the sort of business Villa might have to be a little bit cuter with what they're doing. I think they'll obviously need bigger numbers next year as well. Yeah, look, Luton can hold their heads higher with the season that they've had. They'll be well positioned to try and come back. I think that's the most important thing for them, whereas for Sheffield United, it doesn't feel like that at the moment. They can be proud of the effort they had, and it's just a shame that they hit all them injuries when they were doing really well, like the 4-0 against Brighton, the 4-4 at Newcastle, and then the injuries all came from there, which was a shame for them. Fulham, I imagine, will be same as next year, near enough. I really like the manager. I think Marco Silva's a really good manager. I think he's similar with Thomas Frank at Brentford. I think while those people are in charge of those clubs, they'll be fine.
Man City 3, West Ham 1. Unsurprising. I mean, Phil Foden.
Foden again. Ole, ole.
Is that the song, is it?
Well, that's what was going around the ground, yeah.
Okay. It happens to be Foden again all the bloody time at the moment. Areola with 9 saves in the game. Obviously, unsurprising with what happened. There was a moment where...
They have like 38 shots or
where
something.
it went to 2-1 and then Arsenal equalised at the same time. And you kind of think, could it? Because this is what football is. Like, these are the stories.
Right on half-time near enough as well.
But then obviously with Rodri's goal to make it 3-1, we knew there was no coming back as well. And even when Souček's goal was disallowed rightly, but then you think, no, there's no twist in this, is there? Because that's what football is. It throws up these stories sometimes. City will go on and strengthen and develop. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They'll be favourites for the title again next season. Just you can't write off the team that have won it 4 in a row.
Yes, they will be favourites.
You can't write them off, and they will develop.
But there's only one team that will finish above them next year, in my opinion.
And that could be Arsenal. Yeah, exactly.
I don't see anyone else getting close to that.
No, there's no. I mean, there's always going to be rumours around Pep leaving, but I don't think this is it. I think it would have been announced by now if he was going to go. You think after the FA Cup there might be still conversation around it?
Depends, 115 and all that, maybe. We think, by the way, and I know people keep talking about it, I keep having to explain to people, I don't think you understand that it's 40,000 documents. I've said this 100 times over. Here in sort of October, November, we think, but then result of that probably next summer. If they get guilty, they're not going to be able to announce it in the middle of the season. I'm pretty convinced of that.
Okay.
because it's not going to be, hey, you're deducted 2 points. It's going to be a bit bigger than that if they get found guilty. But to our City football fans who only want to focus on the football at the moment, you should. Congratulations on another deserved title victory. What comes next is probably more investment in different areas. It's difficult to picture what that will be right now. I think City will want another central midfield player to play with Rodri. I think Kovacic has done fine for them, but there's a level above that Manchester City can have in that area.
Lucas Paqueta.
I think...
Lucas Paqueta. It's done. He tracks back, he tackles, he's good on the ball, he's better. Where does he play for Brazil? He plays in a double pivot with Casemiro.
It could do.
He would be that guy that would give them all of that and then still leave them creativity up. He loves to scrap and tackle and doing the dirty side of the game as well. They're going to do it.
I think what they might want to start doing is succession planning.
Mm-hmm.
Things like succession planning for Cole Walker, succession planning for Kevin De Bruyne, which Phil Foden's obviously taken over a lot of that. That first goal is disgusting, isn't it? It's brilliant. Very similar to the goal we scored against Manchester United a couple of months ago.
Not too dissimilar to the goal he scored at the Bernabeu, where he took it on his left and just pinged it.
It's true, yeah, it's free, quite similar.
When I look at it and I'm like, actually, do you know what? The confidence to be able to just turn and do it, and he's done it at the Bernabeu, and he's done it to win the title.
I said to Clates on a pod we did some time ago, it might have even been a year ago, I said, for me, he is the best player at receiving a football on the turn in world football, and I stand by that comment.
Opens it out, and
he receives and goes in one movement. He is the best at it.
So good.
Just so smooth in what he's doing. It's really nice to see the real attacking output coming with the quality that's there. And yes, England have to try and find a way to get him in those areas with others. It's quite exciting to think about. It'll probably end flatly, but it's exciting to think about. Haaland's had one of them days that he's had a few more of them this season than he's had in previous seasons. But yeah, they're not a bad team, are they?
No. And West Ham feels like it feels like the end of a cycle with now a new cycle beginning. I don't think any West Ham fans can end the season disappointed. We've had some good victories against some big teams. We've had another run in the League Cup. We've had a run in Europe. We finished 9th, which is probably one place higher than we would have expected, in 10th. And yet, there's so much more potential. But this 3-year cycle with Moyes of the European football that we've had, when you look at Villa fell at the semi-final hurdle, Brighton struggled managing Europe and the league as well, having not been in Europe for ages. We've had a 3-year cycle of Europe, which has been semi-final, trophy, quarterfinals, and been reasonably consistent in the league, and with quite a small squad. When I look at the attack, like Kudus and Bowen are two of the best wingers in the league. Like so many teams would want two wingers. That was a shit
goal as well, wasn't
it? He's just a funny player. He never quite looks like he's in control of anything, yet his output is just ridiculous. He never seems to lose the ball, and his finishing is great, yet he never quite feels like he's elegant.
I think for a debut Premier League season, I think he's done very well, yeah.
I mean, say Liverpool, for example, if they had to replace Salah, I think buying Kudus is a better bet than buying Bowen for them, potentially. I think there's even bigger upside for him. I think he's got a level to go still. Yeah, I think, and we've managed to cope with Europe and had reasonably successful seasons and gone deep in some cup competitions. Yeah, it's come off a little bit here that, fine, we've got to the end of this cycle. Now we need to start a new cycle with Lopetegui.
You said...
Mix it up.
You said that you're not unhappy.
Nah.
But I think West Ham fans would be if they didn't know change was coming.
Yeah, we want more. And it's the end of a cycle, and it's been a good cycle. Like, genuinely look at and compare. Like, Villa, I don't want to laugh at Villa for not getting to the final of the Europa League, but you think that they should be expecting to almost win that trophy. It's not easy to get over semi-finals and finals, and Olympiacos they should be beating.
It's cup competition.
So it's hard. So
Olympiacos
to have
win that
cycle.
trophy next week. So that's a Champions League renowned team, really, who's in Champions League quite a bit, admittedly. Not often got to the knockouts and stuff, but yeah, it's not that easy. Plus the experience, you think of it as well as Villa's first year, right? So how much did you benefit from that year before?
Yeah,
where you got to the Europa semi before you then played in the Conference League.
Yeah,
so that helps, man.
Yeah, it's good, but it's just not easy to do. And I think we've done well. We managed it really well. We've leveled up. New manager, definitely signings coming in the summer. Like, there's no way there's not. I think if the problem with Lopetegui at Wolves was that he was promised money and then it never came, there's no way he signed for West Ham if he hasn't been promised some money.
But you think Paquetá's going to City?
I don't even think. I think, to be honest, like when we got up to game week 39 on Sunday, I could give him a lift halfway up and leave him in Birmingham. He can get the train the rest of the way, mate.
Okay. You going to criticise Birmingham again or not?
No, not today.
Actually, West Bromwich is not Birmingham, just for clarity.
Boing, boing. Look, I love Lucas Paquetá.
And if you're a West Brom fan, you've got no excuse not to come now, because I watched your team Friday and it weren't great.
As a footballer, I think he's up there as one of the best in the league. And that platform of Man City and Champions League will make him a better player. So let him go and do what he needs to do. Sometimes you've got to accept that he's not West Ham level. He's got to kick on. And he will fit in alongside Rodri like ridiculously well. So let him go and give us the money. Like I would, if we got the money and we bought Smith Rowe for 30 or 40 million or something, I think that would be a good, interesting thing. But what's to say Lopetegui doesn't want to move formation to something different and then we don't play in the same way. So, yeah, and disappointing for West Ham to lose on the last day, but you're at City. What do you expect? And it's the end of a cycle and we move on to next year. Sheffield United 0.
Yeah, Sheffield United
James,
3. Yeah,
16 pints. Nah, maybe not that many.
No, it wasn't that many. I don't know.
Doesn't take as many these days. Spurs 3. Comfy win on the final day of the season.
Listen, I decided...
Kulu's the one that ends up returning.
It was a nothing game. I was going to have a few sherbets on Sunday, was the decision that needed to be made. Nice, hot day, welcoming City, all good. Yeah, Sheffield United are fucking shit.
One goal in 20 for Kulu, and he pops up with 2 in the same game.
Yeah, we've been here before. I even said last week, look, a couple of these Kulusevski hauls down the years have been away from home in games like this. Not that I'd have tipped him up to anyone. No, you wouldn't have. You couldn't have made a case to buy him over Johnson. But obviously, he then started in this central role. There were some little inklings that suggested Johnson might. But no, it's Decky played that position. And he takes the 2 goals really well. The third goal we scored is such a brilliant goal. Beautiful pass by Sonny. Good running from Maddison. Legs back in his game. He's been better this week. And then Kulusevski with his poacher's finish that you wouldn't expect him to score. I have to say I thought Heung-min Son was really good on Sunday. He was a creative menace. Really good. You know, if you can't beat a man in the way that you used to because you're slowing down a little bit, etc. And actually he does on the second goal beautifully, by the way. Be that creative menace because his technique is brilliant, right? The way he can kick a football, it sounds daft. The way he kicks a football with either foot is as good as anyone can, 2-footed, right? So I just thought he was really good. As the happiest I've been with Sonny for a long time. A really good performance, but I also acknowledge that opposition is... They have the same problem, and Sheffield United fans will be familiar with this. They started well. Diaz had a really good effort early in the game. But as soon as they went behind...
Is he on loan there? Burton Diaz?
Yeah.
They didn't sign him permanently.
They won't buy him.
Won't be able to afford him.
They won't buy him. They won't buy McAtee. Their best chance is getting perhaps like James McAtee on loan next year. He didn't even get on the pitch. I don't think Wilder's a huge fan of his, actually. They're not in the best shape financially to go and punch back at this. I think the couple of good players they've got, like Gustavo Harmer being an example, might get bought and moved on. Sheffield United might even be in a position they have to sell and possibly even push that on. Cameron Archer, as far as we're aware, is going to go back to Villa. They're going to be short on numbers bodies, and I don't think they're going to be able to spend a lot. I think they're more likely to keep going than come back, unfortunately. I hope that I'm wrong about that. They didn't have a shot in the box in the last hour of the game. It's just a training football match, mate.
Yeah.
Proper easy.
Last day of the season
You can't
stuff.
judge anything particularly on my team in that. The attacking boys, particularly, as I said, Sonny, thought played really well. The guys at the back, which largely untroubled, stroll through the game. The headline is Porro's Hall, which from where I was positioned was coming straight at me. So I'm glad the net was in the way because fuck me, he hit it, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy end to the
It's very
season.
scrappy as well in and around the box. It just felt like they...
Would it need someone
deflections
just
here,
to
there,
just to
everywhere,
lever
just
it,
to hit it, and it's going to go in. Yeah, I think your club is. We'll talk about it over the summer, and you've got Tottenham for Clayton tomorrow, and we'll do plenty of Tottenhams. Possibly one of the biggest churns in squad could happen at Spurs. And that could be a lot. Like even your bit parts that have had an impact this season and played minutes, like your Højbjergs and even Skips and stuff, but they're the ones that potentially could be gone.
Yeah, we might even need to take another step back before we take the two forward, I think. I wouldn't be surprised if there's challenges in the start of our game next season, because there is going to need to be a churn of players leaving. There's as much about that as getting crap out of the squad, basically, as there is investing in it. And there will be investment, there's no doubt about it. I'm convinced that once Ange gets the players that are more suitable for his system and better quality, we'll do some good things. But it might be that next season might also be another challenge, and I think we'll probably finish in a similar position.
Cool. Right. We still have a whole week of content left, and then we're obviously off the air for the public next week. Do you want to let everybody know what they've got to look forward to,
We're
James?
not completely off the air next week.
No.
I am, but we're not completely. What's today, Suj? Because I'm right out of sync doing this on a Tuesday. Tomorrow, game week 39 preview.
What's today? It's a Tuesday. It's Tuesday.
Yeah, thanks,
or do you mean what show is it today?
I don't know what day it is, and I'm still a little bit hung from Sunday.
Tomorrow is Thursday. We're doing Sky.
We are doing Sky on Thursday.
I know that.
Tomorrow we're doing a Game Week 39 preview with Benny Blanco and James Drewery to discuss Sunday's charity match at the Hawthorns, West Bromwich Albion. Please get donating if you can.
Game Week 39. We'll be filming.
I will pop a link in the bio. If you can spare a £5, please spare it. It'd be hugely appreciated. Friday, Clash of Correspondents, Johnny Pringle, Gary Robinson, City versus Manchester United. And we will obviously have coverage of the Game Week 39 game next week as well, as long as filming goes okay.
Yeah, as long as. A new venue for us with it being at the Hawthorns. And we can't just pop up there and scope it out and check what's going to be happening. But look, we managed to figure it out the last couple of years. I'm sure we'll figure it out.
I won.
Okay, congratulations. James is saying he won because he wasted. How long did it take you to make a video of tactics on the weekend? 2-3 hours? 2-3 hours. There's only one place to go for questions that we've had in on the internet, James, which we've had a few, and we're going to cover them off, but we've somehow ended up talking for nearly an hour and a half. Anyway, Planet FPL Wifey.
Oh, really?
Yes, she has submitted a question in on the internet, and that's the only place we can go first.
She Captain Foden.
Did she? Yeah, she smashed me this year. I mean, who didn't?
Excuse me?
Onana.
Excuse me?
In the league. Which Onana is your favourite? She wants to know, James.
Amadou, because we might end up buying him.
Nah, you ain't going to buy him. You ain't going to buy him. I don't think so.
Don't rule it out.
I'm going to go with, is it Rihanna?
Who?
Is it Rihanna? Onana. What's my name?
Oh, yeah.
Rihanna's Onana is my favourite.
Okay. But they're both called Onana, Suj.
Who?
But Amadou and Andre, they're both called Onana.
Yeah, but I'm going Rihanna.
So you're just going with...
Who's my favourite Onana?
Oh,
Rihanna's Onana is my favourite Onana. Fine. I don't want none of the other two Onanas that are in the league, mate.
I'll tell you what. I
don't want none of them.
I think Andre Onana will have a really good season next year.
Okay.
If Manchester United have a different manager.
FPL Nate, did Suj want West Ham to lose yesterday? The answer is no. I wanted to win. But I also wanted Arsenal to draw or lose so that they wouldn't win the league. But I couldn't care less about it, to be honest with you. I prefer Arsenal to win the league because I used to enjoy watching them under Wenger. But I wanted to win the game yesterday. I couldn't care less what happened in the title race. It's got nothing to do with me, truth be told. Although... Arsenal fans, they're getting more annoying over time. You got a different perspective because you've had a hate relationship with them forever, being a Spurs fan. But I do feel like they're getting a little bit more annoying over the last 3-4 years.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
A certain level of
entitlement,
arrogance.
There you go, close.
How good they're getting. And there's no doubt they're getting good. But there's a little bit of them feeling themselves of how great we actually are. And then, look, there's all sorts of internet idiots, right? But there's a few particular idiots who will get not named on this show because they don't deserve any other oxygen. But shit like West Ham, when I say oxygen to their social accounts, they still breathe. I don't want them dead. But they're like, oh, shit club West Ham, well done for great result. You're like, what the fuck did you expect? Us to go to City and win?
I mean, who said this? Because I kind of agree with the opinion.
I'm not going to name names. Well, yeah, we're really shit. It's why you couldn't beat us at the Emirates. 3-1 we beat you at the Emirates. So, worry about beating us at the Emirates next time.
2-0.
Is it 2-0 in the end?
2-0, yeah.
I know it was the same night that you got slapped
4-2 at Brighton.
Because I had it on two screens, Brighton on one side and West Ham on the other. 2-0, there you go. So it was such an amazing victory, I don't even remember. Anyway, there's just that little bit of we're at this level and you lot are below us. I felt that with Manchester United in the 90s and 2000s, they were dominating everything of that. We're here, the rest of you are like our plebs and serfs served to just roll over each and every week so that we can go on and win trophies. Ain't working like that. They never were always like that. I felt like the last couple of years a little bit more of needle. And maybe when Declan Rice joined it heightened it. But I would still rather West Ham win than lose any particular game of football.
I've got nothing to add on my dislike of that football club.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. Cool, James. I think we'll wrap it there. We've got quite a few questions that we will cover off for patrons because I think there's going to be an interesting Q&As that we do for them. Give yourselves a chance to take a breather and a break from fantasy sports. Do we know when Fantasy Euros opens? It hasn't opened yet. Is it already open?
Lovely, we'll have coverage of it.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was open. I've not set up my account and started tinkering yet. So don't you want a low team ID?
We'll cover it. We'll cover it. Just fucking chill out.
It does feel a little bit premature when the squads haven't been announced for certain.
Yeah, there is that as well.
It's like, who am I going to pick from? Well, I don't even know who's in the squad. So we'll be covering.
I'm not going to have Luke Thomas.
Take a breather. It's the 15th of June. It starts. No, 11th of June. 11th of June. 15th of July is the final. 11th of June the Euros start. So we've got plenty of time. Is it 14th? Mm-hmm. Friday the 14th of June. Mm-hmm. Let's end this pod. Stay safe. Thank you so much for your support. We've had a lot of messages in, James, that people are saying, look, thanks for all the content this year. Great content, all of that kind of stuff. And that happens at the end of every season. Let's just flip it straight back at you. Thank you to everybody that's listened over the season, subscribed, hit the notification bell, done whatever you can to help promote the show, given us some positive feedback, reviews. We want to thank you rather than you thanking us for the content because it really helps keep us motivated. It's great to get all of that feedback. You still have to pinch yourself sometimes when you look at the numbers and think, like, who are all these thousands of people that listen to us chat nonsense? Well, I chat nonsense and James chats sense.
Sometimes.
It is humbling, is the only way to describe it, and is massively appreciated. Keeps motivated and ready to go for another season. When the one when
as
the
long
real
as you support the show.
Head to patreon.com/Planet FPL. You can sign up now, and not only will you get all of our summer content in July,
it's free.
You won't get charged.
It's free,
and all of the content will be going out to everybody.
It's free
in July. So why not sign up, support the show, and we'd love to have you as part of our community when Slack or the prize leagues relaunch next year. There's a few bastards in that Patreon that make more money off us from all the winnings of the prize leagues than they do from their Patreon monthly.
Shout out Jack Bones.
So yeah, it'd be great to have you. But genuinely, if you do nothing else, just hitting the like, notification, subscribe, whatever else, will be as much appreciation as we need. But genuinely, stay safe, look after yourselves. Thank you for a great season. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. You do not need to play it your way this week. Cue music, please, man child.